Hello, welcome to this short introduction on applying mark schemes for internal assessments in the BTEC Tech Awards from 2022. We'll start with a bit of context about why the 2022 Tech Awards now use mark schemes. New DFE requirements stipulate that awarding organisations must set internal assessments for technical awards. So we have developed new Pearson Set Assignments, or PSAs. They will be released twice a year for all subjects except art and design practice, which has one a year due to its different qualification structure. Each PSA will be made available online well in advance of assessment windows to enable you to prepare before delivering to learners and to fit in flexibly with your teaching timetable. PSAs replace authorised assignment briefs or centre set assignments in previous Tech Award qualifications and must be used for the assessment of the internal components. Each assignment will be based on a vocational context and contain a fixed number of tasks that will assess the same set of skills in each PSA. So the mark schemes will remain the same for the lifetime of the qualification. Only the vocational context will change in each assignment, so you will be well prepared each year for what to expect. The DFE also now require the assessment to be marked numerically rather than graded. To address this, we have developed levels-based mark schemes, which are based on the previous learning aims in most cases. There are a total of 60 marks available per internally assessed component, with the exception of art and design, which only has one internally assessed component worth 84 marks. So applying the mark schemes, well, a few things to note before we move on to the mark schemes themselves. The mark schemes and the guidance for applying them that we are discussing here can be referred to in your assessment decision section of each PSA, as well as the Marking Pearson Set Assignment section of the specification. The guidance explains how to apply a best fit approach to marking. Mark band descriptors and the range of marks available are not aligned to a historic pass, merit or distinction grading criteria. Internal components will be awarded, so the marks needed for an overall component grade is subject to change and should not be used for determining the mark awarded to learners. We will, however, publish a grade calculator following results day in each series, which can be used to benchmark progress and model potential qualification outcomes, but will not guarantee actual grade outcomes for future series, as these are subject to awarding in each series. It's worth noting that applying marks rather than grades make the assessments and qualification overall more compensatory. Learners can have high performance against some skills or tasks and weaker performance in others, but will take the total marks forward towards a qualification outcome, rather than taking away a pass for a component where they may have had a mixture of pass, merit and distinctions, as can be the case with the previous Tech Awards. This better reflects learners' achievements. Centre standardisation materials, which contain marked examples of learner work and commentary, will be provided each year. These replace previous OSCAR materials and can be accessed in the same way through edXL Online. However, they will now remain available as an archive of work to refer to and no longer require you to verify that you have used them. Now let's look at how the mark schemes are applied and set up. We have designed each levels-based mark scheme for internal assessment with the same simple structure. There are 12 marks per marking grid, divided into 4 mark bands, each containing 3 marks representing the bottom, middle and top of each band, making best fit decisions more consistent and reliable to apply. Each grid of 12 marks relates to either a single task or subtask. However, some subjects align them to learning outcomes. After applying the mark schemes a few times, they will become second nature due to this consistent approach. This mark scheme is an example from the Enterprise Tech Award, but the principles we are discussing apply to all Tech Award subjects. Each mark band contains descriptors which specify the level or quality of knowledge, understanding and skill that learners are required to demonstrate to be awarded one of the marks associated within that band. Each descriptor is made up of a number of bulleted traits which help to break down the different elements of knowledge, understanding and/or skill being assessed. The descriptors for each band are written to reflect the marks at the top of the mark band, and a glossary of terms used in the marking grids is provided in Appendix 1 of the specification. So using the best fit approach to marking the learner's evidence, you will first make a holistic judgment on which mark band most closely matches the relevant learner evidence. Then consideration must be given to the descriptors in the mark band above and below your best fit judgment to ensure the correct band is selected. The learner's response does not have to meet all the traits of the mark band's descriptor before being placed in the mark band, as long as it meets more of the characteristics of that mark band than of any other. For example, a learner's response may meet two traits from one mark band reasonably well, but meets a third trait in the mark band below. In these cases, you must use your professional judgment as a subject specialist and understanding of the assessment to determine whether it should be placed in the higher band or the lower band. After placing the learner's response within a mark band, the assessor should then make a more refined judgment as to whether the learner's response is towards the higher, lower or middle point of the mark range for that mark band, and allocate a final mark accordingly. If all bulleted traits met are within the same mark band, the assessor should take into account how well the learner's response meets the requirements of the descriptor in that band. If the learner's response meets the requirements of the descriptor fully, the assessors should be prepared to award full marks within the mark band. The top mark in the mark band is used for a learner's response that is as good as can realistically be expected in that mark band. If the learner's response only barely meets the requirements of the descriptor, but is better than the previous descriptor, assessors should consider awarding marks at the bottom end of the mark band. The bottom mark in the mark band is used for a learner's response that is the weakest that can be expected in that mark band. The middle marks of the mark band are for a learner's response that is a reasonable match to the descriptor. This might represent a balance between some characteristics of the descriptor that are fully met and others that are only barely met. If a learner's response meets traits from across different mark bands, starting with your professional judgment about which band is the best fit, then refine the mark based on how many of the traits were met within that band, how well they were met, and any traits met within bands above or below that may bring that mark towards the top or bottom of the best fit band. And where there is no evidence worthy of credit, a mark of 0 for that part of the assessment must be awarded. However, bear in mind that a mark of 0 for one mark scheme may not lead to a grade of U unclassified for the component overall if sufficient marks are gained in the other mark schemes. The Tech Awards are now fully compensatory, so even a result of U unclassified for one component may not prevent a learner from achieving the qualification if sufficient marks are gained in other components. Once you've decided on a mark out of 12 for each mark scheme, you should record them and total them on an assessment record sheet. There is now a single assessment record sheet per learner for the internally assessed components, where you will record the marks out of 12 you have awarded for each task or learning outcome and the total mark for the component. It also provides space for feedback to the learner and combines the learner and assessor declaration of authenticity. This is a considerable reduction in administration required by centres. We have provided this example, which can be used for any internal components. However, this is not mandatory to use, and centres may produce their own documentation, providing the information in the Pearson exemplar as a minimum. Centres will submit a sample of learners' work along with the assessment record for each sampled learner for moderation. This will generally be a sample of 10 learners. And just a final reminder of a few of the key benefits we've introduced into the assessment of the overall suite of redeveloped Tech Award qualifications. As mentioned earlier, assessment is compensatory within components and across the qualification. Anywhere learners gain marks, these are added to the total towards the grade. Component grades are no longer restricted to the lowest grade achieved within the component. And there are no longer any minimum grade requirements in any component. So an unclassified result in any of the components will not prevent a learner from achieving the qualification, providing they gain sufficient marks in the other components. This gives your learners more opportunities to achieve and better captures their true ability. And unique to BTEC Tech Awards, that the moderation process includes direct feedback, and you will be given time to address any issues with assessment before they impact on the learner's final results. We have separate bite-sized videos on moderation, quality assurance, and administration, and using the assessment record sheet that you can watch for an overview of these processes, as well as a full centre guide to quality assurance, which you can download for more information. We hope that you found this video informative, and if you have any questions, you can contact us through your dedicated subject advisor.